Hi, in this lecture we will try out first data structure, that is arrays. So we will cover introduction and what are the purpose and benefits. In a practical example, we will learn how to initialize and declare arrays to store our data and find out how to access and modify elements. And we'll also explore some common operations you can perform on them to manipulate our data. Finally, understanding how indexing works and the limits you should consider. Let's dive into the exciting world of arrays. The definition of array is a data structure that stores a collection of elements of the same type, allowing for efficient access and manipulation through indexing. If we have a requirement to store rent of 6 houses, what if we start creating variable and assign them values like I have created? So you can see six variables of type integer. I have named them like house rent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and assigned values to these variables. But by creating these variables, I have also produced some of the problems here as well. So let's discuss about these problems. So the first one is redundancy. Using separate variables for related data introduces redundancy. You need to declare and manage multiple variables individually, which can lead to code duplication and potential inconsistency. With separate variables, the code may become more complex, especially when performing operations or calculations that include all these variables. It can be challenging to maintain the update the code as the number of related variable increases. So, as the number of related variable grows, managing them individually becomes more difficult, and it becomes difficult to scale the solution effectively, as you would need to create more variables for each additional piece of related data. Uh, the data is not organized in a unified structure. This can make it harder to maintain a logical and consistent representation of the data. So without a data structure, iterating over the data to perform operations on each element becomes more complex. You would need to write separate code for each variable, and that result in repetitive code and increase in effort. And the next one is readability. With separate variables, the code becomes less readable, especially when the number of variables grows. It becomes harder to understand the relationship between the variables and the overall purpose of the data. So the most important thing, such as you have to perform some operations, like you have to sort, search, or filter. So without any data structure, you may need to implement these functionalities manually, resulting in additional development effort and potentially less optimized solutions. So let's convert these variables to a single array. So I have created an array. In code, it look like this. So for example, integer array, I have named them that house rent and add all of these rents into this array. Uh, but let's see how it looks like in the background. So in memory, the house rent array is a contiguous block of array that stores the integer values. The elements of the array are stored sequentially, meaning they are placed one after another. So the left column represent the index number 0 to 5, and the right column represent the corresponding values of house rent array. So when you have to get any value, you can know that that value present on that index. So for example, 0 index shows that it has a value of 20,000 and so on. So by creating this array, we have got some benefits. Like the first one is using arrays, we have reduced code duplication by storing related data in a single data structure, leading to more concise and maintainable code. Like you can see in the first block, we have created six different variables, but when we converted it to array, we only create a single array and add all these values in it. So the next one is now a lot of code complexity is removed. We gather all the data on a single point and we can perform operations on it. And data structure, we also provides built-in methods. Arrays can be resized dynamically in some programming languages. If we need additional house rent, we don't need to add another variable. We just need to add another data in it. So it becomes easy to scale the solutions. Now we have a structured data. Arrays provide a structured way to organize and store multiple elements of the same type. This makes it easier to manage and access the data. Now we can easily iterate our elements. With the data structure, we don't need to write separate code for each variable. That decreased our effort. Now it becomes more readable and performing operations. Arrays provide number of built-in functionalities such as sorting, searching, and filtering. So without any data structure, you may need to implement these functionalities manually, and that result in additional development effort. So let's jump into the code, do a practical example.
So I have opened my Visual Studio. We will explore arrays in C Sharp. Let's create a project, console, next, and then rename it arrays demo. And our project will store on this location. Next, create. So let's assume that we have to store six house rents and then need the total rent, average rent, and total yearly rent. So if we are not using the data structure, how we do the code, and also we'll also explore that after creating these example by using an array or data structure, what benefits we got. So let me create variables. Integer house rent 1 is equal to, then assign a value, and so on. We need to create other variables as well. So I have created all these variables, and then for total in rent, let me create another variable of integer type and then add all these variables. House rent 3 plus house rent 4 plus house rent 5 plus house rent 6. And for average, let me create a double type average average rent, and then the formula is total divided by total amount divided by the total number. So for example, here we have six houses rents and the total amount we got there in total rent and divided by 6. And let me create another variable total yearly income or rent. What would we do is total divided by, or sorry, multiplied by 12. So now we have total rent, average rent, and total yearly rent. Let me print these values. Console.write line, and then we will total rent, average rent, and then also yearly rent. So let me run the project and we will see the result. So here you can see total rent, average rent, and yearly rent. So let's assume that we have to add another house rent. What should we need to do here? So like you can see that we need to first add as another variable. Like for example, we will do a 25,000 and then need to also change this line as well, house rent 7, and then need to change this total. So now we have total rent, total average rent, and yearly rent. So by using data structure, we will see that uh, code will be more readable, would not be more complex, and we can do perform operations easily, and code would be more scalable. Let's create a array. So let me first clear this code. So let me declare integer of array house rent and then assigned value, like the first value is 20,000. So I have added all elements in the array. The next thing is we need total. So we will do it for iteration. We will use for each loop, and total rent would be rent. Let me rename it to house rent item. So we will iterate each element through for each loop, and each element would be added into the total rent. And then for the average, for, for example, we have total rent now. We just need to use a built-in function of array that will give us the total length of the houses. Like for example, house rent array dot length. Okay, and then integer total yearly rent, total rent into 12. So I have write these console lines, and then total rent, average rent, total yearly rent. And let me run the code. Here you can see the same results. The next thing, for example, you have to get what is the house rent of first house and second, third. So in arrays, as you have seen that in last slide, we have indexes. For example, console dot write line house rent, first house rent, like we have a house rent, we will get the zero index. Let me run the code, and you can see the first house rent is 20,000. And if we have to get all these, need to print all the data in the array, So let me go there, and here we have each house rent. Let me remove this one. Here we have house item. You can see we have print all the houses without getting each variable again and again. So the next thing is, for example, we have to get an index of 7. What the code will do, or let me show you with an example. Console.writeLine, we have array of house rent, and we will try to get the seventh index. So as you know, it start from 0, so seventh will be on sixth index. Let me run the project. Yes. So you can see that system gives us an ex exception, that system index out of range exception. Index was outside the bounds of the array. So we are trying to get the index that's not in the array. So we need to make sure that whenever we are working with the arrays, so we need to consider this one. We are not we don't have to get the indexes that are not in the array, or we need to put some checks on it. So by using arrays, you have seen that the code is more readable, more the complexity is gone, and we have also seen that we will use some of the built-in functions of the array, and also this code scalability is really high in this. For example, if we have to add another house, we have to just add the data, and the other things will do automatically. We don't need to do the length of the house rents again and again. So it's a built-in functions. So this is how the arrays work, or we got the benefits when we are using the data structure. So in our next videos, we will explore some of the types of array. If you got any suggestions, please put in the comments. I will try to do my best. And if you have any question, a query regarding the code, please put there as well. And please subscribe my channel and hit the like button. Thank you.